America's politicians and economists frequently discuss the middle class. Middle class families typically have one or two income earners in the household with steady jobs, own a home, and look forward to securing a financial future. Sounds nice, doesn't it? In truth, the American middle class is shrinking, and those who remain struggle to make ends meet. What's causing this shift? With rising housing, healthcare, higher education costs, as well as inflation and credit card debt, the American middle class is feeling squeezed from all sides. Today's American middle class finds it more difficult than ever to feel secure and sustain the lifestyle of earlier generations. But before we get started, welcome to Gray Skies Media, where we help our viewers understand what's going on in the financial world. If you find this interesting, please like and subscribe. We truly appreciate it. Let's get started. What is the definition of the middle class? According to Pew Research Center, the middle class households earn two-thirds to double America's median income. In 2020, this equated to an income range of approximately $30,000 to $90,000 for single Americans. However, the ranges varies depending on the size of the household. For example, a family of three must earn between $51,962 and $155,902 to be deemed middle class. The middle class has steadily shrunk during the last 5 decades. According to a new Pew Research Center analysis, the number of persons living in middle-class homes declined from 61% in 1971 to 50% in 2021. Pew further reports that from 2010 to 2019, the median income for middle-class households, based on a 3-person household, increased by 15%, from $79,838 to $92,042. Following the pandemic, income declined by nearly 2% in a single year, bringing the median income down to $90,131 in 2020. In 2020, approximately 15% of Americans were unemployed, with lower income households bearing the brunt of the burden. Also in 2020, over 14% of middle-class Americans lost their jobs, while approximately 8% of upper-income families faced a similar economic disruption. Several studies have confirmed the growing economic disparity in the United States, as well as the reasons for it. They include the decrease of unions and manufacturing jobs, as well as the rising demand for people to acquire college degrees for positions requiring more technological knowledge. Whatever the cause, the ultimate reason is that the middle class has progressively diminished over the last 5 decades. Because of stagnant salaries and failing wages, fewer Americans are growing up to be better off than their parents. Absolute upward mobility was practically universal among America's youth, not any longer. According to researchers at the Equality of Opportunity Project, almost 90% of children born in 1940 grew up to have better wages than their parents. Among those born in the 1980s, this proportion was barely 50%. For those remaining in the middle class just doesn't mean the same. For decades, American middle-class families have been struggling to stay afloat. Their salaries have stagnated and prices continued to rise. And the pandemic has led inflation to spiral out of control, leaving many despondent and frustrated. Home prices in the United States have climbed by 20% in the last year, while product costs have risen by 8.5%. The basic set of goods and services, monitored by the Consumer Price Index, costs families $3,500 more this year than last year. Average hourly wages are down 2.7% when adjusted for inflation. The cost of products and services has continually risen at such a rate that most middle-class families find it difficult to make ends meet. This means that some good news that were once affordable have become a luxury and are no longer available. Home ownership has grown increasingly unachievable for each consecutive generation as real estate prices have surpassed inflation. According to the Urban Institute, more than 70% of persons aged 35 to 44 owned a home in 1980, while less than 60% of that age group has purchased a home by 2018. The rising value of owner-occupied housing, which reached $29.3 trillion by the end of 2019, has created a chasm that rewards older Americans who own homes while excluding younger generations who can't afford to enter the market. Middle-class Americans are being crushed by soaring healthcare expenses, which have nearly doubled since 2001. Premium and deductible contributions have outpaced wage increases. Furthermore, middle-class families with two incomes are discovering that childcare prices are steadily growing. Childcare is an extremely costly endeavor in the United States. The decision to have children is one that all families must carefully examine. The cost of raising children, as well as paying for their education and college tuition, takes a toll on most parents. Most people are now financially pinched or feel backed into a corner as a result of this. It's a myth that parents who don't work after having children do so because they're not career-driven. However, one parent frequently stops working because the cost of daycare is just greater than the paycheck he or she is bringing home, especially if more than one child is involved. Childcare already consumes 14% of the wages of middle-class working families. For example, those with a household income of $50,000 to $100,000 for a family of 4. Infant and toddler care is much more expensive than care for preschool-aged children. In the United States, the average monthly cost of delivering center-based care for a newborn is $1,230. The federal government defines affordable childcare as costing 7% or less of the annual household income. In no state does the expense of center-based baby or toddler childcare match this standard. Childcare in Washington, D.C. is the most costly of any state, costing $24,243 per year or $2,020 per month. The monthly expense of infant childcare in the district is roughly the same as the rent for a one-bedroom apartment. According to the World Population Review, Massachusetts has the second most costly daycare in the US, costing $20,913 per year. However, being a stay-at-home mom doesn't come with any advantages, such as a 401k. Economists estimate that staying at home could cost several $100,000 to $1 million over a lifetime after you add up lost employment benefits. These include accumulated Social Security payments, as well as additional financial perks, such as matching 401k contributions or a pension, depending on your job. As a result, when a family decides to have children and one parent quits their job to be at home, the income of that family inevitably decreases not just in the short term, but over the long term as well. Then, there's student loan debt, which presently stands at $1.56 trillion for Americans. Not everyone has student loan debt, but the average debt load among those who do, many with degrees and professions that appear to position them in the middle class, is $32,731. The average monthly payment pre-pandemic is $393. All of this has resulted in the middle class relying largely on credit cards to make ends meet. CNBC recently reported, according to the latest data from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York issued on February 11th, credit card debt in the United States reached a new high of $930 billion in the fourth quarter of 2019. Credit card balances increased by $46 billion from the previous quarter and by a worrisome $57 billion from the same period in 2018. The Fed's research shines light on America's expanding debt problem and the heightened danger that younger consumers face. Spend money first to satisfy your needs, and any remaining balance should be stored in an interest-earning account. So why don't the middle-class folks simply cut back on their spending? The heavy, perplexing subject of American middle-class identity and the psychological and social destruction that comes with losing it is at the center of this debate. People feel that if your parents struggled for years to get into the middle class, dropping out of it is generally associated with enormous humiliation. There's also the challenge of drastically altering your family's lifestyle habits. Many people find it difficult to adjust their own expectations for vacations, activities, and schools, let alone the expectations of their significant others or children. Why? Because the middle class is notoriously bad at discussing money. Credit that's easily accessible supports our worst behaviors. The data is disheartening. The cost of living has risen, earnings have not, and debt continues to accumulate, signaling that much work has to be done to protect the American middle class. That's all for now. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more in the future. Have a wonderful rest of your day.